Josephine Baker walks her pet cheetah, Chiquita, in Paris during the 1930s. The American artist, based in France, revolutionized European entertainment and later served as an agent of the French resistance during the Nazi occupation, carrying messages written invisibly on musical sheet music. Elizabeth Taylor at the Dorchester Hotel in London in 1953. The actress was 21 years old and already an established star, having grown up in the MGM studios since childhood. During that period, she was preparing for the adult roles that would define the most acclaimed phase of her long career. Actor and acrobat Russ Tamblyn performs a somersault beside actress Venetia Stevenson on a Hollywood sidewalk. Tamblyn was a trained gymnast and used his acrobatic skills in musicals such as Seven Brides for Seven Brothers and West Side Story, where he played Riff, the leader of the Jets gang. Michael Jackson and Lisa Marie Presley surprise unsuspecting fans in a music store in 1994. The marriage between the King of Pop and the daughter of Elvis Presley lasted less than 2 years and was received with enormous skepticism by the world press, which openly questioned the relationship's authenticity. Rodney Dangerfield and Andrew Dice Clay photographed in 1989. Dangerfield was a veteran of American stand-up, famous for his catchphrase about getting no respect. Clay was the most controversial and commercially successful comedian of the moment, filling arenas with deliberately offensive material. Vincent Price photographed in 1958, the year he starred in The Fly, one of the films that would cement his fame in horror cinema. Before that, Price had built a career in dramas and film noir and held in real life a degree in art history from Yale University and further study in London. A 1949 photograph showing a young girl sharing her milk while teaching her kitten to use a straw. The domestic and affectionate scene captures the type of image that filled post-war American illustrated magazines, celebrating everyday scenes of innocence and tenderness within the family environment. George Harrison answers a phone call in 1969. That year, the Beatles were recording Abbey Road and moving toward dissolution. Harrison, historically overshadowed by Lennon and McCartney, contributed Something and Here Comes the Sun, two of the most celebrated tracks in the British band's entire discography. Jessica Biel photographed in 1999. The actress had become known through the series Seventh Heaven, which began when she was only 14. During that period, she started seeking film roles that would distance her from the wholesome daughter image built by television, a transition that would take several years. In 1976, Weird Al Yankovic graduated as valedictorian of Linwood High School at age 16. A brilliant student who skipped grades, Yankovic would earn a degree in architecture before devoting himself entirely to music. His parody career would span more than 4 decades with rare and sustained success. Clint Eastwood has lunch with Charles Bronson and Hollywood actor and journalist Steve Rowland in Madrid, Spain. In the 1960s, Spain was the main production center for spaghetti westerns, and both actors built important parts of their careers there before returning to Hollywood as established stars. Russian actress Yekaterina Guseva photographed in 1993. Guseva would build a solid career in Russian theater and post-Soviet cinema, standing out in television productions and musicals. The early 1990s was a period of total reinvention for the Russian cultural industry following the collapse of the Soviet Union. Tom Crean, Irish sailor of Ernest Shackleton's trans-Antarctic expedition of 1914 to 1917, poses with puppies. Crean participated in 3 major Antarctic expeditions and is remembered for extraordinary feats of physical endurance, including a solitary 35-mile march to save a stranded companion. Shirley Jones and Jack Cassidy with their sons Sean, Patrick, and Ryan in 1970. Jones would star in The Partridge Family that same year, alongside stepson David Cassidy. Sean Cassidy would also become a teen idol the following decade, cementing a genuine dynasty in American show business. The Japanese hardcore band, The Cums, performing live between 1982 and 1984. Led by vocalist Chitose, the group was among the pioneers of Japanese hardcore punk, a scene that would produce some of the most aggressive and original sounds in the genre, influencing extreme bands worldwide for decades. Natalie Wood photographed in 1960. The actress had grown up in front of cameras, from child roles in Miracle on 34th Street to teenage stardom in Rebel Without a Cause. The following year, she would star in West Side Story and Splendor in the Grass, the two films that cemented her adult career. Bill Murray photographed in 1980, the year he starred in Caddyshack. The actor had come from Saturday Night Live and was beginning his transition to film, where he would build one of Hollywood's most peculiar careers, moving between popular comedies and auteur works by directors such as Wes Anderson. A 1915 photograph showing the crew of Shackleton's endurance expedition, trapped in Antarctic ice, playing an improvised football match. The ship would remain trapped for months before being crushed, beginning one of history's greatest survival odysseys, from which not a single crew member perished. Behind the scenes of the filming of River of No Return in 1954 with Marilyn Monroe, Tommy Rettig, and Robert Mitchum. The shoot was tense. Monroe clashed with director Otto Preminger and suffered an ankle injury during a river scene, significantly delaying the production of the Western film. The future creator of Dragon Ball, Akira Toriyama, in 1971. During that period, Toriyama worked at an advertising agency before debuting as a manga artist. Dragon Ball would become one of the most influential works in the history of Japanese comics, shaping the shonen genre for decades worldwide. Claire Forlani photographed in 1995. The British actress was at the beginning of her Hollywood career and would gain international prominence 3 years later with Meet Joe Black, alongside Brad Pitt and Anthony Hopkins, a film that became one of the most remembered romantic dramas of that decade. Lieutenant General George Patton decorates Private Ernest Jenkins, a member of the 761st Tank Battalion, with the Silver Star. The 761st was an armored unit composed of African-American soldiers that fought with distinction in Europe, despite the racial segregation still enforced within the armed forces. Group photo of the human computers at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. These women manually performed the trajectory calculations that made America's first satellites and probes possible, essential work that remained virtually invisible in the official historical record for many decades afterward. Chess prodigy Samuel Reshevsky, at 8 years old, defeats several masters simultaneously in Paris in 1920. Born in Poland, Reshevsky had given simultaneous exhibitions across Europe since age 6. He emigrated to the United States and would become one of the greatest American chess players of the century. In the studio during a recording session are Earl Scruggs, Maury Manceau on guitar, and Vassar Clements on fiddle. Scruggs revolutionized the banjo with his three-finger technique, creating the sound that would define bluegrass. Clements was among the most respected and versatile fiddlers in American music, a young George Benson in the late 1960s. The guitarist began as a jazz prodigy, playing with Jack McDuff while still a teenager. In the 1970s, he would achieve massive success by incorporating vocals and elements of soul and pop, becoming one of the best-selling and most awarded artists of his generation. Pier Paolo Pasolini directs Anne Wiazemski and Jean-Pierre Léaud on the set of Pigsty in 1969. The Italian filmmaker was also a poet, novelist, and Marxist critic, and produced a deeply provocative body of work. He would be murdered in 1975 under circumstances never fully clarified to this day. Members of Van Halen and Black Sabbath around 1978. That year, Van Halen released their debut album and opened Black Sabbath's European tour. The meeting symbolized the passing of the torch between the founding generation of heavy metal and the new wave that would dominate rock throughout the 1980s. Johan Cruyff in the 1990 and 1991 season, then as Barcelona's manager. As a player, he revolutionized football with the concept of total football for the Netherlands and Ajax. As a coach, he created the Catalan Dream Team and established the playing philosophy that would define the club for 3 decades. Portuguese goalkeeper Vitor Bahia holding a flare in 1997. Bahia is the most decorated player in Portuguese football history, with 25 trophies at Porto, including the 2004 Champions League. During that period, he played for Barcelona, where he spent 2 seasons before returning home to Portugal. American dancer and actress Ginger Rogers photographed in 1936. Her partnership with Fred Astaire produced 10 films that defined the Hollywood musical. Rogers also built a solid dramatic career and won the Academy Award for Best Actress in 1941 for Kitty Foyle, proving her talent well beyond dance. A Spanish bride in 1969 whose style was part of the yeye movement, a subculture that followed British fashion. The yeye represented the cultural opening of Spanish youth during the final years of Francoism, adopting short skirts, pop music, and an aesthetic that challenged official conservatism. The Clash, in 1977, presented as the only band that matters. The London group was central to British punk, but radically expanded the genre by incorporating reggae, ska, dub, and rockabilly. Their album, London Calling, is considered one of the greatest records ever made in the history of rock music. A young Penelope Cruz practicing ballet around 1985. Cruz studied classical ballet for 9 years at Madrid's National Conservatory before moving into acting. The physical discipline acquired through dance would mark her screen presence and lead her to become the first Spaniard to win an acting Oscar. Dwight Eisenhower, George Patton, and Harry Truman at a victory summit in Europe at the conclusion of the Second World War. The meeting brought together the Supreme Allied Commander, the most aggressive American field general, and the president who had assumed office months earlier on Roosevelt's death. John Bon Jovi, Sam Kinison, and Rodney Dangerfield photographed in 1988. Bon Jovi was living the height of worldwide success with Slippery When Wet, while Kinison was the most provocative comedian on the American circuit. Dangerfield, the veteran, had helped launch Kinison's career at his New York club. Isabella Rossellini with her mother, Ingrid Bergman, in Rome in 1970. Daughter of the Swedish actress and Italian director Roberto Rossellini, Isabella would pursue a career as a model and actress, becoming the face of Lancôme for 14 years and working with auteur directors such as David Lynch. President Ronald Reagan speaks with Sylvester Stallone during a White House party and film screening. Reagan publicly admired the Rambo films and even cited them in political speeches, incorporating the action hero's image into the nationalist rhetoric of his administration throughout the 1980s. Welsh artist Frank Brangwyn photographed around 1940. Brangwyn was one of the most prolific and versatile British artists of his era, producing paintings, murals, prints, stained glass, furniture, and ceramics. He worked briefly as an apprentice to William Morris at the beginning of his long career. School-age children in Vietnam around 1967 and 1968. While war devastated the country, daily life continued for millions of civilians. That period included the Tet Offensive in January 1968, a decisive turning point that shook American public opinion and support for the conflict at home. Actress Helen Twelvetrees photographed in the 1930s. Twelvetrees was one of the stars of early sound cinema, specializing in melodramas about suffering women. Her career declined rapidly toward the end of the decade, and she is today remembered above all for her unusual and memorable surname, Joe Pesci, at 14 years old in 1957. Before becoming one of the most striking actors in American gangster cinema, Pesci worked as a musician, lounge singer, and barber. It was Robert De Niro who brought him out of artistic retirement to appear in Raging Bull, a role that changed his entire life. Japanese wrestler Antonio Inoki fishing in Hawaii during the 1980s. Inoki was one of the greatest legends of Japanese professional wrestling and faced Muhammad Ali in 1976 in a mixed-rules bout that anticipated the emergence of MMA by decades. He later became a politician and informal diplomat in Japan. Sean Connery, at 27 years old, in 1957, 5 years before becoming a global star overnight with Dr. No. Before stardom, the Scotsman worked as a milkman, coffin polisher, and model, and had also competed in the Mr. Universe contest in 1953 in London before pursuing acting professionally. Estelle Peck was one of the very few white people incarcerated in Japanese internment camps in the United States. Married to a Japanese American, she chose to accompany her family into detention. Roughly 120,000 people of Japanese descent were interned following the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. Alf Ramsey, the only manager to lead England to a World Cup, photographed in the 1960s. Ramsey won the world title at home in 1966 with a historic final against West Germany at Wembley. His pragmatic tactical approach was decisive and defined English football for an entire generation afterward. Rugby teammates Chris Farley and Pat Finn at Marquette University in 1985. Farley would become one of the most explosive comedians on Saturday Night Live before dying at age 33 in 1997. Finn also pursued a career in comedy, and both men departed leaving a genuine legacy in American humor. Julia Louis-Dreyfus, photographed in 1997 during the final years of Seinfeld. Her portrayal of Elaine Benes became iconic in American television comedy. Louis-Dreyfus would later accumulate 11 Emmy Awards, an absolute record for a performer, with series such as Veep and The New Adventures of Old Christine. Lindsay Wagner, photographed in 1967. The actress would achieve worldwide fame the following decade with the series The Bionic Woman, a role that earned her an Emmy in 1977. The character Jaime Summers became one of the first great female action icons on American television, inspiring an entire generation. Christina Aguilera and Britney Spears in 1993, when both were cast members of the children's program The Mickey Mouse Club. By the end of the decade, the two would be the biggest rivals in global teen pop. The show also launched Justin Timberlake and Ryan Gosling, an extraordinary group of future stars. Paul McCartney and his daughters, Heather, Stella, and Mary, with actor Christopher Lee in 1973. Stella would become one of the world's most influential fashion designers, and Mary a professional photographer. Lee, famous for his horror villain roles, was a neighbor and friend of the McCartney family, the Norwegian national football team in 1934. That generation would achieve its greatest feat at the Berlin Olympics of 1936, winning the bronze medal after defeating Germany in front of Adolf Hitler himself, the only football match the dictator ever personally attended in his entire life. Rocky Marciano with Muhammad Ali in the 1960s. The respect between them was mutual. Marciano saw Ali's potential early on. In 1969, the two filmed a simulated fight for a movie that used a computer to determine the hypothetical winner between the two undefeated champions from different eras. Charlize Theron at 14 years old in a 1989 photograph. The South African actress trained in classical ballet as a youth and worked as a model before moving into acting in the United States. She would win the Academy Award in 2004 for Monster, one of cinema's most celebrated transformations. J. Robert Oppenheimer lecturing at Kyoto University in Japan in 1960. the physicist who led the Manhattan Project, visited the country whose cities were destroyed by the weapon he helped create, an episode charged with profound moral and historical complexity within his own personal trajectory. Shopping at the market in the 1890s, before self-service aisles existed, a lady placed her orders with the clerk who gathered the products from the shelves behind him. The self-service format would only emerge in 1916, permanently revolutionizing food retail throughout the entire world.